Back.
We are back. VeeFam, what's up? I am so thrilled to be joined by a VeeFriends, and I don't use this word lightly, VeeFriends legend back on the show, round two. Formerly want to be a VeeFriend. Now we know him as Jeremy Knows, community success at VeeFriends. Jeremy, so honored to have you back on
My
the
pleasure.
show. How are you?
I am usually not this alive at 9 a.m. I'm definitely like a late bug. Like I'll be rolling out of bed at 8:30, but I was fired up for this. I woke up at 7. I was like, let's
Let's
go.
go.
I feel good. And like we were talking about before you recorded, I think I've still got a Neil Patrick Harris bug or buzz. Like that was a big moment for me. It wasn't like overly ceremonial, like, he's just a regular guy and we shared a little conversation, but just really look up to him, like admire him, respect him. So the interview last night was really, really special.
That's so awesome. And to have a moment, like any one of one is cool, but to pull it with a celebrity of that stature that
I
have
don't
that
know.
connection to you.
I don't know if you saw this, but like you can hear it. I saw the clip and you can hear it in his reaction leading up to the poll. He thought we planted it for him. He wouldn't be convinced at first. And I don't he might still believe this that we wanted him to pull a big card
Right.
and that we said and we're all like, no, really, like that's an extremely lucky pull.
That's amazing. So he had the buzz too.
Yeah,
It's hard to
steadfast
feel it.
snake.
Some wild things have happened in the heart of the beast there at VFriend
Mm-hmm.
Studios. Some amazing pulls, amazing moments. But you know, and this is maybe a good place to start. To see just this morning, there's a picture on Twitter of you and him, and I think it was
Mm.
Tyler Dowdle who's circled you and said, "I'm going to tell
I
my kids
posted
this is
it.
Gary Vaynerchuk." So we're talking on April 10th, 2025. For some context, Jeremy was on episode, and this is very apropos, episode 7 of this show, because he's the Heart Trooper number 7. And just to
Mm.
give a little context, if you're not sure of Jeremy's origin story, which we're not going to dive deep into because we already covered it in depth last time, check out episode number 7. But for the bullet points
Yes.
to show some context of how far we've come since June 22 when that episode released, we covered you getting a first podcast with Gary, you getting called out on the VCon 1 stage from Gary, which were big moments at the time. Uh,
Huge moments.
I minted the Jeremy Knows token. If
Mm.
if you're OG enough to remember the Jeremy Knows token on live on that podcast, but now here you are. You're in the belly of the beast, sitting next to an A-list celebrity, pulling VeeFriends cards on their flagship show for them. That's how far we've come in a nutshell.
So what was that like June or July of 2022?
June of 2022. It was right after
Wow.
VCon 1, just a few
Mm-hmm.
weeks after VCon 1. But for the people, because we have a lot of, I know we talked off the recording, we have a lot of new people coming in, and
Yeah.
I don't say that lightly. But give us a quick overview from your perspective of who you are. Maybe a 60 seconds or less, because I know everyone knows you, but just it's not often you get to introduce yourself and give your own bio.
Sure. The who I am question is always a moving target, and it kind of always has been because before any of this VFriends or Web3 stuff, I was a um, multi-hyphenate artist. I was doing photography, acting, directing, improvisation, ran a theater company in LA, and had just moved to New York to chase my wife, who was living here, my now wife. And then, like so many of us in the pandemic, my industry got totally turned on its head, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And so when VeeFriends came around, I had been studying crypto for a couple of months, and instead of spending my Ethereum, I thought I could earn this scholarship opportunity, which we went in depth on. VeeFriends was offering a scholarship to 5 folks. I assumed it would be content related, and now the Twitter account that most people will find on Jeremy Knows is that same account, which is almost at 40,000 followers, by the way. I just checked this week,
Wow.
which is cool. So today I am a host, artist, and community representative for VeeFriends. I do a lot of the Burn Island and broader Web3 strategy, how to activate our several NFT collections and really strengthen the network of the actual people that hold these tokens. And then of course I support the live commerce team. I host a couple times a week. I run the Wednesday night VeeFriends news live for the last 2 years. I've been working at VeeFriends for 2 years and 2 months. I am Jeremy Knows.
That's a fantastic encapsulation. That could be a 3-day answer if we let it.
I know I'm always getting better at like truncating the origin story. Like sometimes like the ups and the downs and the like, we didn't even mention Christie's, which was just like such a moment for me. I feel like without the Christie's auction and like the massive support that the community came in there, like I could have very likely said I'm done with this. Like because the Christie's auction happened just after I had gotten the denial for the scholarship.
I remember that.
I feel like every few weeks. At first, it was every day, but then after I had some momentum, it was like every few weeks I had to like recommit to like I'm gonna post today, I'm gonna go live today, I'm gonna search the VeeFriends hashtag and reply to someone today. But the Christie's auction, like I feel like in a lot of ways, like really cemented my destiny to continue to be the VeeFriends guy until I eventually became a VeeFriends rep.
So you think, had it not gone well, because I know you were bidding, you guys raised a lot of money. You guys raised.
I don't think winning was the variable. I think winning was incredible and made it even more so. But I think just like seeing the community is what kept me going in the beginning, and having like actual hundreds of people throw $100, $300, $500 into this pool so that we could all be part of history and win that auction. And then to put the trust in me, like it wasn't originally going to be me. I just happened to be the one that said like, "Hey, what if we did this?" But I was the only one in the community that had the mutual trust across everyone, from like the other content creators to like the anonymous like whales that were just like, "Yeah, we'll back this guy to represent us all." And and it was just really overwhelming. Like if you look at that Instagram live, like I'm bawling my eyes out of just like sheer overwhelm and gratitude and like really sense of accomplishment. Like holy shit, we did it. So yeah, I think about like there's a few moments like that, but they're chapters, right? Like I would say like the first chapter was trying to win that scholarship, not winning it, having the door closed in my face, and then the community opening a new door for me with
Mm,
Christie's. And then the next chapter probably comes like with the turn of the year and book games and all this new excitement. My profile's growing a ton. And then the bear market chapter, then the VeeFriends official chapter. And now there's been maybe a couple like sub chapters there. Like that's where it gets a little blurry. I'm just
right.
like in the belly of the beast. And to your point, now there's a more macro chapter happening with our first, publicly available international wide release product with Topps Chrome.
It's fascinating and how the chapters just build up right before our eyes. So,
Yeah.
and I really highly recommend it. It's a longer episode, but the Jeremy's episode where all this with Christie's really goes in depth. And I listened
Mm,
back to it. I just wanted to refresh my memory. But did you ever find out who was bidding you, who had that high reserve for the gorilla? Did
the
you ever,
elephant.
or the elephant? Yeah.
I don't think so. I
Okay.
know the other four. I think that one is still a mystery. I came across it at one point. I didn't commit it to memory, but I knew on the day who had gotten the fly and who had gotten the Diamond Hands hen. And then I recently found out who got the tiger, but the elephant, they just full blind confidence in it.
I think
More than whatever. I think we bid it up to like $320,000. This is no small money,
right. I think it's cool and perhaps necessary for just to have some of these mysteries intertwined with the VeeFriends history. And I
Yeah.
was talking to VeeFriends Jay, and we were talking about the super fractor for the Ninja, and I'm like, I think it's cool if it never shows up, and we're like always wondering, like, where could it be? Did someone throw it out?
For so many cool inserts, like what just happened with the community inserts. You've got
Mm,
9 people who pretty much, if you spend any meaningful time in VeeFriends, you're bumping into these folks. And I'm glad that they're sharing them on the timeline because they might otherwise never be seen.
right. That's a great call out. We need to go back. I think the most appropriate place to start is the bridge from you going from community member to getting the job. The
Let's do it.
arc was Jeremy was very the guy, still is. Like if you want to learn about VeeFriends, go to the Instagram, like you said, start at the beginning and just watch the videos, listen to the podcast, read the articles, all the things to get educated. But you were very out front, like I want a job at VeeFriends.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the case the whole way, but at some point you were like, "This is my goal, and I'm gonna not just talk about it. I'm gonna provide value to the
I'm gonna be
community,
about it.
to VeeFriends, exactly, be about it." So you at some point get a job or get a call, email, and it becomes official. So like let's go to that moment.
Yeah, I'll give you the play by play. So like
Let's
when
go
we're
because that was a
chatting,
big moment for the community.
it was. It was. And I felt that too, that it was like not just a win for me, it was a win for everybody who had followed me and supported me. And like I say it all the time, but like it's a very real thing that like I would not have made it without the community. I mean, think about the Jeremy Knows NFT, for example. Like that was $25,000, $30,000 that I would not have had, that I had no ability to like really keep myself afloat without. And actually in December 2022, without without the job offer, I was ready to pivot back. Not to like stop being the guy, but like really pump the brakes. Like go get a job at a restaurant and downshift because it was the bear market. And like,
Hmm.
you know, I wasn't monetizing my content because that was the model, you know. Selling a $150 NFT a couple times a week to make ends meet. And so to go back to June or July, I guess it must have been June that we spoke. The bear market was just beginning. I'd be curious about the day because I think the bottom actually was that week. Because I remember I was at my childhood home to help my mom move out, and I remember bringing my computer with me and being on it and like looking at what crypto I had and being very concerned. Like and ETH under $1,000, not knowing, like just uncertainty at all time highs for me. So the next several months, I know I want to work at VeeFriends, but I don't know what my role is. Like, I don't actually have like a very tangible skill that makes sense because for somebody who's new to VeeFriends and watching this, they don't realize that we didn't really kick on the live stream component of the business until September of 2023, so almost a year later. And I applied for every job that VeeFriends put out. Everything that was community related, like marketing, like I was there in the applications and had a couple of calls with the team where we had a good relationship, but there just wasn't a fit. And the story that I'm not sure people know is it was really just like a regular day. And what I mean is it was a Sunday and I wake up and I'm like, what am I gonna do today? I need to record a podcast. So I'm going to go live on Twitch and I'm going to read the VeeFriends blog and I'm going to do a live recording of the podcast and I'll post it and then I'll go about my day replying to comments or figuring out my life. And on this day, Andy Kranak, president of VeeFriends, happened to see it. And there was something about that day where he was like, this guy should be doing this for us. And so in that same window, I was emailing with the team to resurface my application, being like, hey, it's been a few months. Has anything changed? And I got the reply like, hey, Jeremy, let's hold off. The president wants to meet with you. And I was like, great. I'm like, I'm open.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to Andy and he said, "Yeah, we're working on the timing. I want Gary to be." And that changed like my whole perception on it because like if Gary's in the room, I assume there's a decision to be made, right? And that was before I like know what I know now about how kind of VeeFriends operates. And it was. A couple weeks later, we hopped on a call just right before Christmas. It was actually the day before I was leaving to go see my family in Argentina for the holidays. And I anticipated that this was like my shot. I've given the pitch to Daniel and to Zane and to May and to Andy, and now I've got the time with Gary. Like I've got a whole list of like all the different ways I can provide value. Like I've got notes. Like I'm ready.
Hmm.
And the meeting starts and Gary's like, so we have a position opening and we think you're the right guy for the job. Period.
Right to the point.
Gives me the details on what it is. Character performer. They've got a few projects they're gonna need. Performance, voiceover. They wanted to really focus on the street content. Like that bug of live interaction really started with on the street. And he was like, "Do you have any questions?" I think he was like, "I think you should consider the offer. Talk to your wife. Yada yada yada." And so, yeah, a couple months later, obviously I said yes immediately. I was like,
Mhm.
any concern that I have, like, yes, like thank you for the grace to think about this, but I want this. The specifics. Sure, there's time to figure it out, and so we did. And 2 months later, I started full time in February 2023.
So it was a virtual meeting, right?
Hmm.
So like that this is weeks, not weeks. This is months, years in the making. This is what you were building up for. Like did it hit you
Yeah.
right away like a sack of bricks? Like what emotions rolled over you
Um,
at the time? What do you remember thinking and feeling?
yeah, I mean, I was totally floored because obviously Haley was aware of the whole thing. Like, I've got a call with Gary. I probably knew a few days in advance, and I came out of the call being like, they offered me a job, and like that's the thing that we wanted more than anything. But full time benefits, like that's a situation for an artist like myself that, especially in New York City, is really hard to land
Mm,
and hard to even fathom. Like, yeah, I was humbled and grateful, and I suppose it hit me like in different ways over different moments. But at that time, I was just like, we did it. Like I told my family over the holidays, like, this crazy thing I've been doing for the last 8 months is paying off, and I've got a full time job. And my mom was so glad because she's all like, my mom has always been pretty supportive of my creative career, but to like know that I'm earning a livable wage as an artist was always her concern. And so to be able to alleviate her concern was really great. And then it was just the learning curve of like, what does my actual role look like? You know, I'm also like, we didn't talk about this, but like really what I did as a theater artist was clown and improv and puppetry. So I was always a kind of a hired gun. Like I would come in, I would get a script or an outline, I would improvise, and the director would like use me in the way that they needed. I might be working on stage or backstage, but I never had like a real boss. I had contractors. And so like for a clown in a corporate structure, it's like I always joke with myself about like that learning curve. Which is kind of perfect because like in terms of a corporate job, like VeeFriends is kind of the most friendly corporate situation you could have.
I could imagine that,
Yeah.
knowing what I know. That this is before Christmas 2022. Sometime, well, on or around February 16th, 2023, you
I
put
think it
out the
was
tweet.
February 13th. Oh,
February
you're talking about a tweet. That was my start day, February 13th.
February 13th, eventually put out a tweet letting everyone know. A tweet from Russ Oviatt on February 16th, 2023. Today should be named Jeremy Knows VeeFriends Day. You have the only thing I could compare it to was like a living funeral, because you have a Twitter space and it's 4 hours,
Yeah.
4 hours of nonstop people coming up, and a revolving door of people coming up on the stream, giving you
Yeah.
roses for getting this job, which says a lot. Like, that's really layered if you think about it. One, it says a lot about you. There's a lot about the amount of people that you've touched and affected and helped and provided value for and provided comfort for in the community. And it says a lot about VeeFriends itself and the kind of community that's been cultivated from it. And just kind
Totally.
of like this whole different nuance, like building in public. Like, this is not just a
Right.
company hiring someone. There's, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but there's, if we double click into that, there's something about the era in Web3 and just the nature that we live in. So like when you're coming up, when you're sitting there and having people say all these nice things, some you may know very
Yeah.
well, some maybe you shared an interaction with someone you may not know at all, but they read your stuff, they watch your stuff. What's I don't know if you can remember, but what's going through your mind there? Because that's a whole other
Yeah. I know what
other
you mean.
situation.
I know what you mean. I'm pretty sure I was just here in my apartment and, pacing around. moderating and hosting. I think the living funeral is an interesting metaphor because the community lost a content creator, right? But to your point, like I was more than a content creator to a lot of people. And Andy and I both talked about this in the lead up, which was like we were both aware that there would be this vacuum. If Jeremy isn't there to consolidate the information coming from VeeFriends, who is? And there wasn't anybody. Now, 2 years later, there are a couple people that I would see. Nobody should aspire to be Jeremy Knows. They should aspire to be Deanne Bad. They should aspire to be, Mr. Messer Rob. Everybody's finding themselves and their own voice to be able to do this stuff. But the service that I was providing to the community was taking several blogs and random comments and Twitter replies and putting it all in one place. And that vacuum had to be filled. And so when I was talking to Andy, he's like, well, it's great if the community fills that vacuum, but VeeFriends should fill that vacuum. And that was partly the impetus for the 5.5 and 555, to have a central audio space where that same information would be available. But obviously, what you lose is more of the guessing and forecasting and speculating that I was doing
Right.
about like what could this mean. It's much more reporting than it is, um, anticipating. And certainly, like I think one thing that's changed a lot since then is, and this is like Web3 wide, but in VeeFriends in particular, like we've really shifted into the collector mindset
Yeah.
and the long-term mindset. And there's always going to be a market element to what we do, right? Even like these Topps Chrome cards, like there's plenty of flippers who got in immediately listing on eBay and taking their $30, their $50, whatever it is. And that's awesome. But in order for VeeFriends to succeed, we really need people who believe in the longevity of what we're doing. And so I think about that a lot. Like I think about what it means for an individual who's like witnessed the whole thing, went to one VCon or three, and feels enriched. And how do you take someone who is a single book games holder or a Series 2 holder and doesn't have the same access that a Series 1 has had, or maybe the same attention, and try to make them feel personally enriched so that they look at their collection as a representation of who they are in the VeeFriends community, as opposed to a game token that they can buy and sell at will. Of course, they can, but it's just one part, and I think it's become less important over time. It'll matter to people, but the spiritual, the energetic, the experiential enrichment of individuals, I think, is one of the reasons why VeeFriends will win, because we genuinely care about the people in our community. Like whether you're getting like a single pack or whatnot, or you're dropping thousands of dollars on a Series 1 NFT, we want to know you, and we want to know that you're good. And if there's a way that we can like support you, we want to know that and do something about it if possible. Like look at what happened with Anthony last night.
Yep.
Obviously, Anthony's given a ton to the community, and he's a day one minter. He's been around. He shot his shot with Gary. He said, "I'm writing this book. Will you support me on the launch?" And Gary said yes. He could have said no. And it's such a fun gray area where it's like it's a people driven business at the end of the day,
Mm.
you know? Because like we talk about, I know I'm going all over the place, but like,
No, I'm following you.
well, we talk about like how collectibles is a hobby already. If you're buying things from VeeFriends, you're already in a blessed position to have some form of disposable income. $40, $4,000, $40,000, doesn't matter. It should be disposable. And the reason Anthony got that moment is not because of the amount he spent, but it's because of the person he is. But once he spent that money, he was on the radar in a different way, to have that opportunity to get to know him, to be able to say, yes, we trust you and we want to support you, and we'll happily, share our platform so that people can know you better because you've also given so much to the people that we care about. And so like that's what I'm talking about when I say like the network effect of the NFTs. I just try to hammer that home as much as possible because it is a situation where like, you get more when you give more.
I think, and I love the word enriched. I have this quote that you dropped last episode, and it's something I feel and think about all the time, but I forgot that you said this, and it just encapsulates everything. You said VeeFriends will be great because of Gary V, but it's not because of Gary V that VeeFriends will be great. And to me, when I hear that and spend so much time in the community and listening and talking to people and watching, the community that is cultivated and watered and nurtured by the brand that trickles down, that's the network effect of VeeFriends, and that helps keep that culture. And that's why I think it's going to be net why people are attracted to it, because people are living the traits. People are kind,
Mm,
people are thoughtful, people are generous and inspirational. Like another part to that story that Anthony told me, like he didn't want to write the book. He wanted to, but he didn't feel that anyone would read it. He's
interesting.
like, I'm not famous. I'm not, I'm nobody. That's why I'm not doing it. And what Gary said to him, he said, if you do write it, I'll have you on my podcast. So
Mm, I
that
love that. I didn't know. I didn't
that
know that.
pushed that pushed that pushed Anthony to actually write the book, which is gonna, who knows the ripple effect of that. But that's just a little meta moment in this big ocean of people living out all these traits real time, whether they're Gary V or whether that person that buys their first two packs and gives one to someone else. Like we just don't know.
Drop the quote again, just to pin this.
VeeFriends will be great because of Gary V, but it's not because of Gary V that VeeFriends will be great.
Yeah, there's a lot in there because for exactly what you said, like Gary V and Gary Vaynerchuk, they're two different variables if you think about it.
Oh yeah.
Because anybody who's like been to an IRL event at VeeFriends knows that they're not necessarily meeting Gary V. They're meeting Gary Vaynerchuk. And while they are the same person, like Gary Vaynerchuk is a little more himself. Like he has a very special talent, and I study him a lot, which maybe sounds a little weird. But like when I have the opportunity to be in the room with him, I pay attention to what he pays attention to because he's an expert at body language, just like by intuition. And his superpower, while he might say business and the things that come with that, right? Strategy, negotiation, decision making, etc. To me, his superpower is attention. And when I say that, I really mean presence.
Hmm.
Like you see this in the Gary V selfie line at VCon. He's surrounded by people. There's 100 people in line. He's got a posse of 8 to 12 people, from coordinators to PR to videographers to his personal assistants. They all have inbound information for him, and someone at the front of the line who he may not even recognize, has never met, will get his absolute full undivided attention. And if an assistant comes over and like taps him on the shoulder, like he'll do that real time decision making of like, hold on, I need a minute, or telling the person, I'm so sorry, give me just a moment, and then
Yeah.
receiving it and being like, okay, and then just like locking in. And honestly, I hope everybody gets to experience that. Not from Gary or from anyone, like just to be like fully seen and appreciated in the moment that you're communicating. Because like a lot of the isms that come from Gary's content, um, you just experience on a daily basis working at VeeFriends. Like communication solves all problems.
Hmm.
That one, like I'm sure you're gonna ask me like, what's the best or biggest thing that I've learned working at VeeFriends? And the answer is patience in a real way, but um, but it's hard to rank them because patience is not something that you necessarily practice on a daily basis. What you practice is like the dirt. You practice is the repetition and the communication. So like when something is up, whether it's new and it's like, hey, this is an opportunity, or something is wrong, like, hey, there's an error, big or small, the very first thing that happens is everybody who needs to know about it is put into a single Slack or text or email, and like we align before we do something. And it's because communication solves all problems. Like the solution might not be what you want to happen, but a solution nonetheless.
That's wow. There's a lot.
I know. I'm like, are we setting up round three? The thing is, Rob, I'm such a big fan of you, and I'm so grateful for people like I called out you and Anne earlier. And has Anne done the VFam sessions yet?
She has.
I need to watch it. I'm her second biggest fan. Maybe her third biggest after her husband and her daughter. But like I just loved watching her like give to the community through her content. Um, but there's a dozen people, like Riley's made a really big splash recently with the Chrome Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Livingston, has come back. I don't want to say come back, but like he's been very busy teaching and in his IRL life, and now he's spending more time and he makes really great stuff really fast. He's vibe coding. And
Sure.
there's just so many examples of people who make VeeFriends what it is. And you're one of those people to me, not only because like you followed me and supported me from day one, but I see you actively living the things that we want VeeFriends to expose in the world, right? Like I've seen you show empathy in the face of aggression or judgment. Like I've seen you be welcoming and kind, you know, and to somebody who's kind feels like
Yeah.
of course I'm going to be kind, but I think we might take for granted in the VeeFriends community how rare it is to be just welcoming and non-judgmental and also not afraid to be ourselves like and disagree without being disagreeable about things. So all that to say, I could talk to you about VeeFriends for hours and
Yeah.
hours and hours.
I really appreciate it. And from the get, I there's a few reasons that I started this journey, but somewhere along the line I was like, this is not headline grabbing, attention grabbing stuff. I just believe in the thing so much, and I know that like these little stories are going to be treasured, and I know Gary is one of the greatest of all time. That's just how it's going to shake out. He's going to be one of the
Yep,
most documented people.
he is that guy.
He's the guy. And like I'm not saying this as like where I'm coming from. I'm not like a crazy Gary person that's going to be on like a flag list, but I just believe in him so much that I just believe, and I know
Yeah,
how he feels about this. Simple math, like this is going to play out. How do I use my skill set to do that? So I knew like I was in the long game forever, but the biggest little wins for me that keep me going are the people that really know, looking at this project and being like, "You're onto something. I like that." So get flowers from you over the years has really helped me in those low moments. Like, what am I doing here? It really helped push me along and motivate. If we're gonna play in this little pool for a sec, I'll give that back to you. So thank you.
I love you, Rob.
Love you too. Let's really quick just for the listeners, because there's so many people that, whether they're out in front about it like perhaps you were in some moments, or they're closed off. They love VeeFriends. They think the grail is to work in VeeFriends doing X, Y, or Z. So
Mm,
just for fun, you're walking, VeeFriends probably more than many people in the building, but you walk in
yeah.
there like and you're learning about how the sausage is made for the first time. Was there any big revelation, surprise that jumped out for you in those first couple days? I know maybe you weren't in the office, or maybe you were, I don't know,
I
but you're
was.
walking in there, you're official, you're onboarded, you have an email, you got the handbook, whatever. Like, talk to us about
Bro, the email hits so different.
the flex.
One of the first things I did was I requested if they could reduce it to just Jeremy. It was Jeremy.Honeyelli. And I was
Hmm.
like, listen, guys, I'm going to get so much inbound from the community. Can we just make it Jeremy? And
Hmm.
it's like, that's not policy, but if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yep.
And I'm very grateful for that. There's so many things to this question. On the one hand, it was just surreal to like have a key card and be given access to the entire VFriends Google Drive. And like I poked around. I was like trying to learn. Like there's a lot of content that we have internally for cross department communication. And by the time I got to VFriends, it was over 40, maybe 50 employees. So there's also a lot of people that I don't interact with on a regular basis and didn't know worked at VeeFriends. The the thing that always comes to mind with this is I had an experience that most people will never get, that I will never ever have again, which is on my first day on the job, everyone already knew me. And that is very surreal. You know, like literally nearly every single person working at VeeFriends like knew that. Like there were jokes where I'm in the first couple of meetings and being like, Jeremy's here, can we talk about this? Because we were talking about things that were coming, right? The
Yeah.
alpha. So it was wild, man. You know, I think Gary talks about this on his socials, but like VeeFriends has an open door policy. So whether to Gary, to Andy, or other managers, if you need something, like it's an open door. They'll let you know if it's not a good time, but they'll make sure that they get that time as soon as possible. Yeah, so I was also not familiar with like I said, like I'd never been in a real corporate situation before, so like I didn't know how to use Slack. Like I'm not a Google Sheets expert. You know, even like the simple reporting things that are like very standard for anybody, like you have your OKRs, you know what your targets are on a quarterly basis. You have to be accountable if you don't meet those targets. Like all those things was like the first couple months where I felt like every other week as I was starting to like get a handle on what I was being asked to do, it would switch up and they would like throw something new at me to see like how does Jeremy handle this to like find my spot. And so I was working with the social team a lot, managing the Twitter with May and just coming up with new strategies, GIFs, different content types, like writing threads. And I was making that work, but really where I'm at now, where I'm more community forward and focused on our Web3 initiatives, is like more of a Goldilocks zone for me. Like
Mhm.
interacting with people is really where my superpower is, and so yeah, I'm really really enjoying this more. But what I'm so grateful for in that early process is because I jumped around from creative to social to community, I know how the sausage is made when it comes to product, when it comes to like the pipeline for submitting for a creative asset, getting that approval, submitting revision requests. Like, I know where all of that lives, and I also know like what the capacity is, because as you can
Right.
imagine, like the creative team in particular is, I just assume they constantly have a full plate. You know, like they're eating as fast as they can to get to the next thing, and sometimes they're just curveballs. Like sometimes they're working on stuff that is 6 months out, or even stuff that just doesn't end up getting released because that's also a thing. Like we'll make a lot of content where if it's not good enough, we won't put it out,
Hmm.
or if it's not the right time or whatever. But other times, like there's a real time opportunity. There's something trending, and like let's get on it right now. So having visibility on that has really made me a better teammate. Because like I say this a lot, and I really think about Daniel when I say this, but it really applies to everybody. They're like, because I'm out in front, I get a lot of flowers for like, you know, supporting the community and being there and answering quick and all
Hmm.
those things. But a lot of the time when I'm answering quick, I'm seeing the question and I'm verifying the answer and then I'm giving it back. And like just the speed and the consistency is just really not possible without the open communication that I was talking about earlier. Of just like if there's whether it's a miscommunication from a third party partner or something internally, or we need to adjust and we have to comms that to the community, like having everybody on the same page, and that gives me the power to act fast and put that information in as many places as possible where I see people asking the question. So it's me that's helping people, but I'm just representing a much larger effort to make sure we have that clarity. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very very interesting insights. So early on, it's funny that your role title now is community success, but that's been
Yeah,
your title for since before the thing even minted, in
yeah,
many people's eyes. So, and I talked with Daniel too in to speak at VCon, which was a big moment because it's like here's the official brand, and we're reaching out to the community. And I think that in a lot of people's eyes, a really great gesture. VCon
Yeah.
2024, same thing with the why am I blanking on what you guys rebranded it to?
Voices of Econ.
Oh, because Voices of Econ. Thank you, Voices of Econ. So you're really extending that olive branch to the community, which is done often, but it's really amplified like this with the Topps Chrome. Like when you have these big mega launches or events like VCon, it just feels a little bit different, I think, in a lot of people's eyes. So
Yeah.
as far as things like that, I know you guys are always watching, but were you leaned into a little bit more heavily because you were so close and you have so many relationships with so many different people?
Yeah.
Did they grab you for some of these things, even though it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
per se your department?
Yeah, I was involved in both the selection process. I mean, we had a committee, so we had hundreds of applications come in, and we had like a dozen spots. And I think for VCon 1, there was like an open application. And part of the reason that we gave it a dedicated stage was so that we could really target not necessarily community token holders, but like also know where the token holders were. Try to where it made sense, give them the opportunity. Yeah, so for both of them, I was involved. It was really under Daniel's supervision, but there was a larger team that was like reading the applications, vetting them, kind of putting them through. I think we did 3 rounds each year. Because as you can imagine, like we have a lot of really talented people.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that job.
We have a lot of really talented people, and it's tough. I mean, it happened just recently with the community sketch artists. Like, I know that there's a ton of people. I mean, I know that there are people that are like, I would have wanted that opportunity. Or what I love seeing is like now my goal is to be in next year's edition,
Mm.
which I don't know if there will be community sketch artists, but I would hope so. And yeah, it was cool. And I moderated a couple of the panels both years. I think to speak a little bit to what you mentioned of the separation between the VeeFriends company and the VeeFriends community, I'm glad to say I feel like that space has closed over time, but it's also a very necessary component of what we do, right? Like surprise and anticipation
Hmm.
are key elements of marketing. And what I think people get frustrated with is that I could be wrong, and feel free to correct me, that a lot of other Web3 projects, the community is the marketing. You are an owner of a part of this IP, whether it's your individual token or the larger project wide, and it is like kind of your charge to be an ambassador. And while there's an element of that, like we really want VeeFriends holders and collectors to experience VeeFriends. And that's why it's more selective when there's like actual integration like we had with the New Year, New You and giving wholesale prices to the live streamers, the community stage stuff, the sketch artists, and also a lot of stuff that people don't see. They're like, we're not going to announce or market, but whether it's like job opportunities or just like replying to an email, connecting to the right person if possible. It's always something that I struggle with because I would say this will be an interesting insight for you, and I think you'll appreciate it. I want to say it wasn't that long ago. It was probably like the end of last year, maybe over the summer. Yeah, it was after VCon, and I was feeling that same stress. I was like, man, why can't the community be more involved? Like, they would love to know that this is coming, for example. And I was feeling some anxiety about that. Both because like I've got to hold a lot of stuff back, and it's been you've seen me in real time like walk the tightrope of sometimes hinting, but also just not being able to hint at all. And that used to be like the main thing that people came to me for. And there's so many reasons for that, but point being, sometime toward the end of last year, I was feeling an anxiety about this, where like I saw good ideas from the community and on the timeline and in the Discord and wanted to bring those into our development process, like, like many hands makes light work. Like we're having a great brainstorm here. Imagine if we had three, four, five, 100 times the amount of like input. And of course, like the balance is too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like you can't
Right.
have too much, but I was like, what's the balance? Like, can we figure it out?
What's the middle?
And yeah. And I think there is, yeah, can we meet in the middle on it? And I think that there is still, like, I have ambition to see more of that happen, but my realization that I think, at least for me, is language that I feel helps me do my job better for both the company and the community is I am not the VeeFriends community Robin Hood. I am not, I am not a mole trying to take from the company and give to the community. I am a megaphone for what VeeFriends brand needs to communicate. And of course, I'm like also a confidant and I'm a friend
Hmm.
and I play a lot of roles on a personal level, but on a professional level, like it is not my job to be Robin Hood. And someone had said that to me, and it really stuck with me because it means that I have aligned incentives and goals with both the company and the community. Because at the end of
Hmm.
the day, like the community really does want to feel taken care of and feel heard, but they don't want to subvert the things that we're doing. They want to see those things win. Like, I understand that anytime somebody complains about something we do, it's because they want us to be better. And I think while I don't know who's going to get to this point in the podcast, but like while I have the mic, I will say that anybody who's called a fudder is usually a friend of the project. Like, I'm so tired of the narrative that FUD is inherently negative.
Yeah.
And I know you know this, but like negativity and criticism is not it's an opportunity. Like if you're out there in the VeeFriends community, you feel threatened by somebody questioning your purchase decision or the time you're spending in the community, like that's just an opportunity for that person to reveal themselves to you and for you to reveal yourselves to yourself, right? It's good to question. It's good to be uncertain and to be afraid because those are where we like find confidence in what we believe, right? I This is a fun moment that we probably didn't talk about last podcast. I remember the very first time, it was like 2 months into making content, and somebody commented on my post. They were like, "Just give up, bro. What are you doing?" And I was like, "You guys, I got my first hate comment. Like I'm doing something right."
Yeah.
You
And this.
know? And so like I think people self-select. I think it's on everybody to like determine where they spend their time and attention. And do I think on one hand that like somebody who's complaining or maybe being like targeting someone is could probably spend their time elsewhere in a more productive way that's better for them? Probably. But as a megaphone for the brand and as like a an advocate for the community, I always want to hear those voices. And like if somebody hears those voices, like pass it to me so that I can try to build a bridge with that person because that could be our next greatest collector if they just feel heard and they feel understood. And I really think like the entire team would back me up on this that like communication solves all problems. Like we need those voices as much as we need like the cheers. You need the
Yep.
cheers and the booze.
100%. And we, a few weeks ago on the Chrome Bridge, there was a moment where it was elevated because of the amount of people in the room. But Gary was on. When Gary tweets something, he brings numbers, and
Yeah.
there was a moment where someone was uh maybe asking things out of turn, had a different tone, questioning Gary, and there was a lot of flashback for many reasons. But this happens often when like people are summoned for questioning, like how dare you like
Mhm.
step out of not be a positive porcupine and like ask that or say that. When if maybe the vehicle that they use for the questioning maybe could be tweaked a little bit to be more cordial, but in reality, like it's just I want to know more about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually said like this is a veto moment. Like we got to be living this out. And just like I
Yeah.
don't want to be too toxic and negative. Like I'll call the entire community at large. Sometimes people fall into like the toxic positivity when like
Yeah.
this is a real life happening here. That's not sunshine and roses. Like we got to work it through. We got to come
And
toward the middle. So like I've fallen in love. Like I believe I was a purple guy when I started this project, but like I'm falling more in love with the purple every day, and I'm
Yeah. How about
more
that
comfortable.
rebrand though? How
Yeah,
about that rebrand of purple? The new logos are hitting so nice on the
it's the
PFP.
best.
But to
It
your
really,
point, that's also why the balanced beetle is so featured in the
mhm,
new comic. I know
right.
a lot of folks haven't read the comic yet, but the battle for balance begins. That wasn't the first title. It was the last title they selected.
Mm, I love that. So apropos. And great segue for the comments. But one more thing to wrap up this kind of early Jeremy V Friends
Yeah.
journey. VCon 24. You mentioned you were moderating. You moderated Steve K. Bark and Thread Guy, and
Yeah.
I was just sitting there. It was a great job, top shelf moderating. I was listening to all three people, like all the voices that for those few years on Twitter Spaces, I was like, I'm just listening to Twitter Spaces right now.
Right.
Like it was all of the voices of like
Yeah.
my personal taste in Web3. So that was just a kind of a selfish, like, cool moment. But VCon 1, 2, and 3, I can't believe that all the access is fulfilled. At what point did you know that the punchline of the Gary closing keynote that this isn't the last VCon
To be
in
honest, I
2026?
think it was the same day or the night before. It was the night before that I knew for sure. What it was is like Andy and Gary were spending a lot of time on like, how do we want to set this expectation?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the intention, but I didn't know the reality until the night before. And I probably would have not known until a little later had I not like kind of been keeping close to Andy and being like, where are we at with that? Like people are because like Gary was very aware and I was flagging it early. It's like I mean early. I mean like months before the speech is like one of the first things that Gary said was I'm giving the closing keynote at the last VCon. You probably remember that. Like early on, way before VCon 1, he was like I'm giving the opening keynote at VCon 1 and I'm giving the closing keynote at VCon 3. It was a very just pivotal moment for especially day one mentors, people who had like really gone on the journey. And I knew that there were high expectations for that final talk. And I thought Gary crushed it, honestly. Because he has been a consistent cougar with his message of like the VCon experience was meant to give underlying value to this while we build out the foundation of the brand. And it's probably where you want to go, and it's a good segue to what's happening now with Tops Chrome and like the expansion of the community through our live channels that we have a lot of things in place. Like we have thousands of GIFs that are getting millions of views every single day. Probably hundreds of GIFs. I don't know. I can check. But like they're getting millions of views every single day. We just saw somebody post in our Slack that a friend of theirs shared a VeeFriends GIF in the wild. They have no context on VeeFriends, don't know they work at VeeFriends, but shared it in a group chat. Like
Mm,
that organic discovery is happening. People who have been following Gary for years, who may or may not have seen the original NFT messaging and boom, are like getting curious now. And they're seeing inroads that are not the NFTs that are much more familiar to them that they can relate to, like the cartoons. Like the amount of people who come out of the woodwork and like, I've been watching the cartoons with my kids. I didn't realize there was a trading card game. I didn't realize there was comic books and NFTs. And frankly, like the whole NFT thing is just still very challenging. Like if you would have told me 4 years ago where we are from an onboarding perspective for NFTs, I would have laughed. You're like, no way. It's going to
right.
be way easier by then. And it's just not. Like, and that's one of those things where it's like patience. But, I think the things that Gary really hammered home in that closing keynote were the content and the pillars that are going to build up the characters. And now it's time to tell the stories, right? One thing that last thing here is you're going to hear a lot more about the canon of VeeFriends. Like you've been documenting the early lore, and there will
Mm-hmm.
always be the expanded universe. Like and that's I'm taking that from Star Wars. Like Star Wars has their canon of movies, and then they have all these novels and things that are expanded, and sometimes they come into the canon. VeeFriends has no canon right now until the comics. The comics will establish the canon.
It was jarring and eye-opening because we've been living in this lore world. When he came on one of the 555, or maybe it was a special space, and he was like, half of you are going to have a new favorite character
Yeah,
this time next year. And that was like, wow. He's like, we don't know these characters at all. So that, for
I have new
me, that was like
favorites.
interesting.
Not because of the comics, but I just realized that I don't make enough money to collect the Heart Trooper full tilt.
Right.
So I've got a second and third, and I really I want to tell you, but I've been specifically not saying it on live streams so that I don't get boxed out by the community because it's like literally not for any reason about like future product drops or collaborators or anything. So I'm going to tell you because I love a little VFam Alpha. This is Jeremy Knows Alpha.
Jeremy knows. We're
My
back.
new there's like 5 or 6 characters I'm toying around with, but I feel pretty confident I've locked in Charismatic Chameleon.
Okay.
And that was really reaffirmed last night on the Neil Patrick Harris talk. I asked him what are the 3 attributes that he looks for that would make a great collaborator, like great chemistry in
Hmm.
whatever it might be, a film, acting, movie. And he said wit, like the witty weasel, charm for the charming cheetah, who's also one of my like enjoyable characters, and charisma for the charismatic chameleon. And the other two are intuitive iguana. I think that one's pretty well known that it's like a really big character. And the one that I think people will not follow me on that I can just like take over is the consistent cougar.
So funny you said that because I've been leaning into that. I was like, I need to
Yeah,
be more consistent as a trait. And
as a trait. That's why I was like, what got me here? It was actually consistency more than
yeah,
anything.
every day.
Yeah.
And you mentioned repetition before, and I know you tweeted about it the other
Mm-hmm.
day. So important. All right, so the chapter two, the
The
next
chapter
phase
two
of characters.
characters, yes.
I love that.
And they're both C. So on letter breaks, don't
That's
box me out on C.
that's
There's
the
there's
play.
no tier one characters in C.
That's that's a great way to think about it. That's
Yeah.
very you're gonna adopt all the characters in the same letter.
C
I
is
love
my
that.
letter, yeah. It's also my middle initial for Charles. There's meaning to this. I'm a collector.
I know. There's you're a layered guy. You're a layered
Yeah.
guy. So speaking of storytelling, people came to you for the alpha and the no, but
Mm-hmm.
you spent a lot of time on those Twitter spaces and you ideated a lot of storylines, with your background in theater.
Yeah.
You had plans for Competitive Clown way before Competitive Clown was even released or attached to the Fives pickleball team.
Yeah.
You ideated a lot of these arcs. I remember hearing how you said Resilient Red Devil would be like the alpha bad guy in the universe, whenever that comes. And this was just you pontificating as a fan. But now here you are on the creative team. You're doing cartoons post shows, working with DJ. So that brings me to the comics, it's no secret that it's going to be a huge pillar, based on just bringing in DJ, bringing in a team, comics, IRL, and newspapers through Lee Enterprises and Daily on the Comics. So, talk to me
Yeah.
about the origin of that. When you found out that you were going to bring on DJ, it was going to be a thing. And from what I collect, that you were a big proponent in his onboarding and learning about the universe here. So, I would love to hear you riff on that because he has vastly become a vital part of what's happening over there.
I am a big fan of his. I can't really take credit for much, but I did play a role. As it relates to comics, I'm actually not in the know. I don't read them enough as they come out, the like the comic strips that we post on social, and I haven't read the comics until they're done. It's really Gary and DJ and Andy that are making these stories. Like Gary is so hands-on with these comics because it is the canon. So
Hmm.
like occasionally DJ will ask me a little context around a character or a community of what I think, but I really can't take credit for where the canon and story is going. I think in a future chapter I might be able to play a larger role, but they have some top-notch talent there on the comics team, and DJ he's just so incredible. So like the way the comics are made is what's called the Marvel method, and it was popularized by Marvel where there's more of a verbal description of the story, and then the illustrator puts it on the page versus like a full storyboard that like a Disney would have done. So obviously Gary is the one pontificating and really like working through the story beats, and then DJ and Chris and Allie and Kate, they put it all together. What's cool about comics that people don't know yet is stylistically they're going to vary a lot. Like the style of number one is different than number two, is
Right.
very different than number three because they're different artists. And Gary's a very big proponent of letting artists be artists, which is another thing I appreciate. You know, you saw this with the gift go drops. Like, of course there were some like suggestions, but for whether it was Beeple, like dude with big presence who you don't want, he's a bull, like you don't want to be in his way when he's got a
Right.
creative vision, or King Saladin, or wherever they were on like the kind of, popularity ladder. It was like, we brought you in because of who you are. You're not here to meet our vision. We're here to share your vision with our community. Similarly with the comics, like the story and the details are very well kept, but stylistically, it's going to be very fun. So, to your question about DJ's onboarding, it was the end of 2023, and Gary tweeted, like, we're looking for a comic artist. Reply to me in the comments or email me if, you know, this is you. And I think also in the tweet he mentioned, like, multiple strips a day and live streaming because we had already started on Fanatics Live, and we were looking for a full time cartoonist. And I was like, this is cool. I wasn't part of this conversation, but I pay attention. And DJ, he started a brand called Draw or Die,
Yep.
and he had been live streaming his comics for a considerable amount of time. I don't know how long, but like he was already in the flow of live streaming and doing process work on live, and really championed that for his own comics community of like, you can do this too. Like, you can build a community. He was aware of Gary and had enough context on Gary to catch that tweet. So I'm pretty sure he saw the tweet himself, and then he started digging into VeeFriends, and someone that he knows or is in his community told him to talk to me. So that's where the connection lies. So
Mm.
it was probably 2 days after Gary's tweet, I get hit up by DJ Kaufman, and he's like, "Hey, somebody told me you're the VeeFriends guy. Can I ask you some questions about the characters?" Because the audition for the job was making a comic strip. And I usually have it here, but I actually just took it to the office. That first comic, we printed it, and I got one that he submitted with his application. And, like usual, I was like, of course, I can actually hop on a call tonight if you want. And so we talked for maybe 15 minutes, and I was like, dude, it's one of those things where, like, in the document don't create vein, like, I wish I was just recording my whole life sometimes because, I don't know what to expect. This guy's super nice. He's telling
Right.
me he saw it. Like, I don't expect he's going to be the guy. I'm just I'm just happy to support another artist who's like going to shoot their shot. Then after like me like telling him a couple things about VeeFriends, he's like, "Well, let me show you what I was thinking." And he pulls out this Miro board with like a whole mind map, like not just one comic strip, but a whole vision for how VeeFriends can go from strip to newspapers to printed comics to like worldwide comic like powerhouse. He had the vision in 48 hours well enough to show me visually with all these ideas, with sketches of different characters, and he just kind of wanted to like know if I thought this was the right direction and if there were any like big top characters that he should work into his comic. And at that point I was just like, you don't need me, man. Like, you're on the right track. Like this level of thoughtfulness, whether they ever see this or not, is going to be very felt in this comic. And I'm just glad you asked. Like, here's a few characters that I know are super popular, like work them in or not. And the whole concept of his first comic was kind of meta. It was like the audition itself. I think it was Patient Panda or somebody was drawing a comic, or no, it was a comics tryout, and so there were a couple different characters coming to try out for the comic, and uh, and that night he was, as he had on schedule, was going to go live and talk about this opportunity and draw the comic he would ultimately audition with on his live show. So he went from the call with me to his live show, and the little role that I played was I texted Andy and I was like, "Hey, this guy is live drawing a VeeFriends comic," and the rest is history. Andy tuned
Wow.
in, said hello in the chat, didn't like say who he was or anything, I don't think, but that if he wasn't already gonna get, I'm like 100% sure in my heart of hearts he would have hit the radar anyway, but it just fast tracked him on the radar for Andy. They got on a call, started the interviews, met Gary, felt right. They started working together before the end of the year. They posted that New Year's Day comic and then posted a comic every weekday for like the first 6 or 7 months of the year before it became clear that DJ was such a powerhouse that they needed more illustrators. They needed to like take a step back to like get to the next stage of the book rollout, and now DJ leads the team.
And how many people are on the team right now? Is it five, six, four?
It's DJ, Chris Faison, who created comic number one or did the art for comic number one. I think DJ did the story and he did the art. Ali Castro, who is also wonderful, has done a lot of TikTok content. She did this great comic I love where the Harpic is like this kind of like really round, large character, and he's got a broken horn. So if you catch that one, that's like her style. Um, and then Corso as a coordinator, marketing organizer. And then there are a couple um, contractors. They're not full time on the comics team. I think I know her first name is Kate, but I don't know her last name. Um, but she did. I don't think I can tell you the character, but she did an upcoming comic. Because a lot of these early comics, which I can share, they're the origin stories of the characters that you
Four.
see. So like, um, I know Andy and Gary have already shared that the Fearless Fairy is coming. So like the origin of the Fearless Fairy, for example. Um, yeah, the first four are already done. So once
Wow.
once the gift goat, and they've been done. Like we've been looking forward to the timing and the drop of this for a while. The gift goat comic number one is gonna be landing in the next week or so. And then by the end of the month, we'll probably see comic number two, and then we'll be on a basically monthly basis. Whether it lands in May or early June, I don't know for comic number three, but we're off to the races. It's time to tell the stories.
It's fascinating. And, to DJ's credit, you could be a talented artist, but to be able to, and you already alluded to that he was doing it live already, to be able to interact with the chat and be personable and to be
He's so
kind,
good at it.
answer
And he just
questions.
gets it.
He
Like the
does.
whole VeeFriends ethos. Like he just is.
A cool story that he told when he came on this show. I don't remember when he had that initial, your hired meeting with Andy and Gary. I don't remember the number exactly. Let's say three. Like let's do three comics a week, and he's like, no, we need to do more. So just like in the meta of like him telling Gary Vaynerchuk like and Andy like we need more content. Like that's pretty much all you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to bring you to September 2024. Well, it was announced on March 11th, 2024. The Moonbug partnership. After many people saying, we got to have a kids show. We got to have a kids show. March
Yeah.
2024. It's announced. It drops September 2024. The VeeFriends show. 6 characters on the cover. 6 primary characters with some supporting cast trickle through the episodes. Give me like a remember when you first saw that, knew that there was going to be that partnership. Your thoughts after being that knew this was coming. but now it's finally there.
It was quite a while before the announcement. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember it was kept pretty tight. It was a tight kept secret because it was such a big partner to land. Moonbug really took a risk on doing that because they were so well established, but also every other cartoon they've ever produced has been IP that they own.
Mm,
So I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is the first and only time so far that they've licensed an IP to create a show like this. And a lot of that has to do with Gary's relationships and them seeing the vision for what Gary is building. So before I knew Moonbug, I knew that cartoons had been in development for a long time. It was just a question of how and when and in what format. Is it 5 minutes? Is it 3 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? So that was always a thing. Like for the entire 2 years that I've been here, probably sometime around the end of 2023 is when I heard that there was a real possibility. And then some months before, yeah, it was some months before because I remember we previewed it at VCon. We had the little
I
trailer,
remember, yeah.
and so I knew I must have known a couple months before that. But I didn't know the extent of how many episodes or which characters or anything until basically when everybody else did.
Creatively, is that who is actually, is it a Gary thing for the storyline?
Many, many hours with Gary to identify um which lessons and which characters. And
Okay,
then once you have those two variables, you can kind of reverse engineer. Because Moonbug is really like back to what I was saying about letting artists be artists, like let Moonbug be Moonbug. Like they know the formula that works. We just need to put in the VeeFriends variables. I don't want to get this wrong. Yeah, Dialed In Dog was originally going to be Polished Poodle. And a Dynamic Dinosaur also, I don't think was in the mix in like the first proposal. I don't remember the reasoning for the Polished Poodle Dialed In Dog switch. Might have been just like it's an easier character to identify, like a general dog versus a specific type of dog. But Moonbug had a lot of very like broad-based, target demographic insights that led to that. Like, why is Dynamic Dinosaur a big character in Moonbug? Because kids like dinosaurs. Like, it's not more complicated than that, and that it was a character that fit the mold of those stories. Like I think there's a lot of hints about what VeeFriends intends to say to the world in those 20 episodes. Not that, like, necessarily the Fearless Fairy Dino rap battle is going to turn into a feature length film or even a longer episode, but that the lessons behind them, like, pretty much every episode has a unique lesson. And I would say those 20 stories, although they might not be canon in the way that we're going to talk about it going forward, they are canonical themes. I would be shocked if those 20 stories don't surface themselves through the comics and other things that we eventually call.
sure. And it's almost like that day trading attention model of like put it out organic per se. What hit the most, and like let's
Right.
push that one.
Yeah, let's double down on the most popular episodes for sure.
Fascinating. And then, in the same breath, we have the first ever children's book release, Meet Me in the Middle, January 9th, 2024. Also a long time coming. I know old news for
Yeah.
you, but at the
That was like a
time,
day one. That was like a day one promise from Gary.
yeah,
And it's funny because like people will say like, is VeeFriends ever going to do video games, for example? Yeah, of course. Gary's answer from day one has been we're going to do it all. We just don't know which ones are going to be the ones that really make VeeFriends relevant.
mm,
The book has been massive for us because it's cheap, it's affordable, it gets to the core meaning of these VeeFriends characters. It's actually valuable content for children and parents, and people can reread it, right? Like whether rewatching the cartoons or rereading the book, like that's meaningful interaction with the brand in a similar way that coming to an event is or ripping a pack is, but specific to that type of audience. So yeah, the book was awesome. I didn't read it or really know much about it until it was announced. Um, And you know that the original Meet Me in the Middle characters were going to be different?
Yes. And then
Yeah.
the publisher changed it. It was, refresh my memory. It was,
It was Optimistic Otter and Cynical Cat.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, which makes a ton of sense. Like there's such a great duality, but I think it came back to the fact that cynicism and optimism were too big of words
Too heady.
for kids to understand at that age. Um, and yeah, it's fun that both of them actually had cameos in the cartoon. But yeah, the book is one of those things where it's like you could come into VeeFriends, spend 2 months here, and not even know there is a book.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. It's funny. Sometimes Rips will be onboarding someone that just falls into a whatnot stream, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a book, and
Hmm.
it's like it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
But in our world where there's this a collaboration every 10 days, it's just another feather in the cap.
that's what I mean by foundations and like that runway to build the brand. There's just so many points of origin for new collectors. And like there are going to be people who like love VeeFriends in their heart and soul and love what it's done for their family and they don't collect a single thing.
Mm,
I've never said that before, but like I like a parent that with a Meet Me in the Middle book doesn't need to have a super sticker. They don't need to collect Topps cards, but they have the opportunity to do so.
right.
And they have a chance to like take one step closer, right? Like I'm sure there's plenty of people who like read Ask Gary V or Crush It and haven't read the other books, right? But by having 6 or 7 books, however many, it's just more opportunities for people to become attracted to the overall mission because it all like at the end of the day, like on the one hand you have the funnel of like content. You have a content touch point, you have collectibles, you have live stream, you have IRL events, all that stuff leads people to VeeFriends products and VeeFriends digital collectibles and ultimately VeeFriends Series 1. Like if you're a VeeFriends Series 1 holder, you believe so deeply in the future of the VeeFriends brand that you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. And that's not an easy trajectory for most people, especially when they can't just Apple Pay it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Great call out.
There's another funnel that is like in parallel, which is like your affinity to the brand, like your identification with the brand. Like the reason that Anne Bag has a Series 1 NFT is because she's so aligned with it that she felt compelled to show that she believes in these values and believes what this like this it's like a fucking sun, man. It's like we're about to like supernova and like spread out all across the universe. But I really think that like there are a lot of people that right now that are getting their first Series 2 NFT because they identify with the brand.
It's a big move. And
It's
like you
huge.
said, maybe it might not be the whatever it is right now, 150, $200, but to go through all those steps, to sit down in a meeting with you,
Yeah,
right? And for
yeah.
you,
It's
it's just
clunky.
another
It's
meeting,
very
but for
clunky.
them, it's
Trust
like
me.
it's an ordeal. By the way,
Yeah,
do you have any estimated figures of how many people you've onboarded to either VCon tickets? I know that was a big thing, and or series
hundreds. Like probably 2 to 300.
that you 200 to 300 specific one-on-one meetings where you help people get a wallet
Yeah.
and acquire their NFT. That's a lot.
Sometimes group meetings,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Going, and you alluded to this, and it's no surprise here. If we're thinking in eras, we have the minting
Hmm.
in 21 March 2020 or 2022. I think about a lot of that we're evolving. It's Series 2. It's the birth of the cards,
Yeah.
and 23 to me is cardboard summer pops out, but the start of this notion of collecting, like we see super stickers for the first time, we see pins, all these drops, and just the notion of collectability. For me, when my Gary, I was following him before, but when my Gary fandom really escalated and was when he got hot on sports cards and got loud
Makes
his three
sense.
bullet points, because he always shouts the same thing over and over. His three big reasons why he was into them were because people that grew up with them now had more disposable income. People
Mm.
love nostalgia and they want to relive their childhood. And now that they're old enough that
And they
they can
share with their
share
kids.
with their kids, in comes VeeFriends collectibles, like in a big way. Not only with all of the drops, but live commerce. The Fanatics era. We see, and he was on, we call him Twitch Gary, when he would like pop into the moon streams and kind of be off brands, more like Jersey Gary a little bit, have some fun.
Yes,
Wine
he's
Gary.
very aggressive in the live
Exactly.
stream chat.
It's a different flavor of Gary. So you kind of feel more like in the club per se, knowing that persona of him. But we've been in this era where people are collecting.
Yeah.
It's a long way. Let me tell a quick story for you. Um, where is it? Basel, 2022. You helped put together the VeeFriends Takeover event in Miami.
Yes.
You remember this epic
Yes.
event, one of my favorites. And you were putting together with the Series 2 boxes, I think perhaps maybe the first
We
ever
did the first tournament.
tournament.
Yeah, I remember.
And
It was
and if
very
you're
janky. Didn't we do it with blind packs?
blind packs, you had a whole bunch of boxes and you had a whole bracket. You got to keep your cards. This is when you got to keep your
Yeah.
cards. You gave away maybe 2 packs per person to start.
Yeah, something like that.
And you got to keep your
That
cards
was
that you
right,
lost.
because we had to have enough boxes so that people could keep ripping through multiple rounds.
Exactly. So the more you won, the more free cards you got.
Yeah.
These, I don't know what they were at the time, but now they're $400 a box.
Yeah. They're probably
I
half that.
We were trying to start the tournament that you were running. We didn't have enough people. There was
Mm.
over 100 people there. I remember walking around that venue
Yeah, we
asking
couldn't.
people if they would play Compete and Collect to get free cards. Like we had to literally pull people to fill the 16 person bracket or whatever
Right.
in December of 2022. We've come a long way because we would have people pay hundreds probably of dollars to be participate in that today. So here we are. We're on the brink of Topps Chrome. We both enjoy saying, this is the end of the BTC before Topps Chrome era. Talk to me about what this means for you as a, because you were one of the early rippers. You were one of the first people to document opening these Series 2 boxes, and now
Right.
you're someone that does it weekly, more than weekly, on Whatnot, which has become a VeeFriends juggernaut and onboarding tool.
Yes.
What does this mean? Like why is it so impactful,
Mm.
this moment for you as a collector and as a someone that is totally aligned and works for the brand?
Man, it means a lot. I forget that there's like dozens of completely unedited videos of me just sitting on stream ripping cards. Like no intro, no like graphics, just like raw on YouTube.
Just ripping VeeFriends packs.
And I gave you flowers before, so I need to mention it. I hope that the BTC era thing really sticks. Because like I'm gonna consider it May 7th, and I wanted to do this before we end the BTC era. But the really clever thing about it is like if you don't have context on crypto, you don't get it. Is like the BTC era for the world was, whatever 2009, 10 to Ethereum in 2015. And so like I can't wait for the ETH era. I don't know what the ETH is gonna be, but it's just a really clever acronym. Before Topps Chrome. So in the post Topps Chrome or in the Topps Chrome era, I think a couple things. Number one, it just means, what's the right word for this? It means it's not authority. It means like I'm looking for a word that's like a mix of authority and reputation. Like it means recognition that
Mm,
this is a real thing. Because as you know, when the TCG cards came out, they were not publicly available. Like the first time you could buy them was at the National, and nobody knew what they were. There's that classic post that Mike JY loves where it's like just a few tables and a banner for VeeFriends.
yeah.
And then the next year, it's like this whole booth, right? This year, it'll be our fourth year that VeeFriends is at the National. We're the one of, if not the biggest corporate sponsors of the biggest trading card, collectible card conference in the world. And our booth is going to be bigger and better. And not only are we going to have a Topps Chrome product, which for people who are not initiated into the hobby is like the brand name, we're also going to have a Sapphire edition that's going to come out that was given to the gift goats with a very small 95 box supply for VeeFriends. So for the uninitiated hobbyist who collects Pokemon or Magic the Gathering, like they know Topps Chrome and they know it primarily as a sports set. But over the last several years, I mean, they had a Pokemon set in 2000 where we have our homage to them in the Y2K insert. But more recently, there's been Marvel Chrome and Disney Chrome. And, not only is it cool to just be in concert with those brands that we aspire to become in terms of reach and mindshare, just for a regular hobbyist who's like a Magic the Gathering player to be able to see like there's gonna be a buzz at the National, like the newest non-sports Chrome set is here. It's by Gary V, who he's got a good and bad reputation in the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just gonna make waves for us. And I don't know, to go with the waves metaphor, like the wave causes a riptide. So if you get
Mm-hmm.
hit by the wave, you're gonna be pulled a little closer to the comics, to the cartoons, to the book, to the characters. And falling in love with the VeeFriends brand, I think, is a much taller task. Falling in love with an individual character is much easier. It's much easier to identify with. And of course, we'll also have TCG there. We'll be in the middle of our tournament season for 2025, and I don't know that we'll really have new developments to share on the TCG front, but like we're also developing TCG. We're gonna have a tournament at the national. So I feel like the first several months of Chrome are going to be just like banger after banger after banger. Cause like streamers are gonna have a new product that's just fresh. It's more fun to rip. There's more shiny cards in there. The inserts are more diverse than the rare, very rare epic spec system we have in TCG. And then we've just got really cool IRL events that are going to allow those waves and that riptide to just happen over and over again. So I guess to like get to the point, like it means recognition outside of, isolated community. And it means a whole new wave of content that is going to attract new collectors. And I think it means a little bit of like he meant it when he said he was going to build this for the rest of his life. Like, in the vein of like you're only as good as your last at bat, like this is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a home run. Like I don't want to like, knock on wood, but like this is setting up to be a full home run. And, by the grace of God, maybe a grand slam. Like maybe like doubling or tripling the collector base. And God forbid half of those people, a quarter of those people decide to get involved in the community in a real way, join TCG, come to the tournaments, come to the follow up events. Um, that's just momentum that that money can't buy. Like that's something that you only get by releasing a great product and having like an army of soldiers, both in the company and outside in the community, that are just stepping up every day to like onboard somebody new and like and make those people feel like they're part of the next big thing. Like we feel like we are the next big thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like we're gonna like can't wait to be the next big thing.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, have you heard about it? Hey, we're live tonight. Hey, we're live right now. Hey, here's five other things that we've already done that you might be interested in. Like there's just a lot more for people to sink their teeth into than when Zero Cool Cards released or when Series 2 came out. It really is it's a new chapter for
Mm-hmm.
the card side of the project, and it's gonna elevate everything.
It, it's so fun hearing. There's so many different ways I get like invigorated
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just feel good about it, and
I mean,
just
you can
hearing.
tell. Like, I'm hyped.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
really
you're
excited.
pulling out new personas.
Yeah,
By the way, I hope the Tony thing really stands the test of time.
the
I hope
Tony
it's
thing
not
is so
a
funny.
cup of coffee.
It's so funny because it's such a bad accent. Like, it is not a good accent, but
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. And now Tony is both like the henchman and the Godfather. I haven't
Yeah,
really like squared that, but I have a show tomorrow night, so I'll figure that out live.
you gotta embed him like as a little Easter egg character in another piece of content. Maybe he's like stroking his chin or something. Like he's got to
I
pop
like
up in
that.
random places.
Yeah,
On the Gary thing.
yeah,
For me, the piece of content is he did a 2022 NFT Now interview where he totally went off the rails, and he's like, I was building community when you were sperm in your dad's dick, and he just kind of went off. And I know he knows those guys, but he went into that like
Uh,
competitive Gary mode, like I'm gonna melt your faces
yeah.
in a whole different way. Just total conviction about what he's building. Is there something that maybe it's a piece of content, maybe it's something he said, maybe it was a random meeting? Is there that moment for you or thing that you could point to, be like, man, like that really reinvigorates me, motivates me to keep on this track and follow this vision, this long term vision?
It's a good question. It's hard to answer because it happens all the time. The first one that comes to mind is like not like a real hype moment. It was like maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the office, and I came in to ask him to sign something for someone who had shipped it to the office, and he took the moment to be like, "How you doing?" It was toward the end of 23, so toward the end of my first year, and he was like, he said something like, I was talking to Andy, like, we want to give you more of like a project role next year. Like, we want to give you some things to like kind of own and be a bigger part of. And I don't think he would mind me sharing this. Like, he had the VeeFriends cards behind him, and one of them was Patient Pig. And he was looking at me and he's like, you know, now you really have the context. Like you've been here for long enough that you see how it works. Most people aren't paying a year's salary to train someone up. And he looks at the patient pig card behind him and he's like, I believe in this so much. Like I believe in patience more than you can even understand, more than anybody understands. And honestly, in the moment, I wasn't impressed. Like it didn't like blow me away, but it was a time where like there wasn't a lot of momentum. We were doing a lot, but we weren't necessarily feeling like it was moving the needle. And now it's feeling like everything is actually driving results. And so I look back at that moment very differently than I experienced it. Like my takeaway from that moment was like, oh cool, I get to like play a larger role next year. Like I wonder what that means. And now I look at it like there's a difference between having an intention and taking action on it. There's a difference between having a plan and having the skills to execute the plan. And I think a lot of what patience means to me now, 2 years in, is really more about accepting and focusing on what's directly in front of you. Like markets are a good example of that. Like, I'm not crying. Like, I didn't even know Ethereum took a dip until I went to the timeline because I'm so focused. And I don't need to know until I do, and it's affecting like the mental health of our community, and like I understand that that's a factor in all of this.
Mm.
But like the price of ETH is not having an impact on the next like story we tell or the next thing that we need to create. I need to like work fast, but also work intentionally to make sure that like it's great. Like Burn Island super stickers are a great example. Like those took a lot longer than I would have wanted, but the wait was worth it. Like people are getting them in hand, they're excited. Like the product feels good, the packaging is great. It's like a nice level up. Like that's one that I was very close to, like kind of in that realm of like we want to give you stuff that you can own. Like that was one that like start to finish, Daniel and I worked lockstep. Like got that from idea to execution. Obviously working with creative and product design and all that stuff. On the flip side, every time I'm live streaming with Gary, he's a wild card. You know,
Yeah.
like he'll go from like nobody talk. I'm not entertaining or doing a damn thing until there's 100 shares to like like and you see it all the time. Like he literally like won't let us go live without reminding us to like go deep with the new people. Like not only does he want to know new people are there, he wants to know that they're getting on board in a way that is personal, that is like, yeah, deep. Like ask them where they're from. Like what are they into? Do they collect before? Did they come from Instagram or did they come from TikTok? Like we might not be able to track every data point, but we're definitely like an info rich kind of company. Like if you're willing to share with us, we're willing to hear because like I said, it's just a very people first engine to the whole machine. I don't feel like there's a lot of moments. Did you see that live stream from the news when Andy and Gary and everybody was calling in from the woods a couple weeks ago?
Oh, I didn't know. I missed that one.
So a couple weeks ago, we recently moved the news from Twitter Spaces to Whatnot,
Yep.
and that's been really great because you have the chat. It's much more real time. It's less focused, but I think it's more value. Plus, we can do the giveaways and stuff. Andy and Gary and the team were wherever they were in the woods
Yeah.
developing the next round of comics. It was a comics offsite, and that was a good example where like it's hard because you didn't see it. Like he's taking up half the screen, and I'm like just trying to like manage the energy, and he's like, Jeremy, you don't know a thing about the woods. You have no idea what like every single time he gets excited about the comics, he grabs my arm and he looks me dead in the eyes and he says, Jeremy, you're gonna be so excited when you like, because he knows that I care about the story element.
Right.
Like the, I don't know, like I don't get to see or talk to him every day. I probably text him every day or get a text from him. But when I see him, almost without fail, if he has like just a bit of downtime and I'm there and be like, Jeremy, when you like he does this thing where he's like, when you see the comics, you're gonna love what we're doing. And then I see the comic and I love what they're doing.
Mhm.
He's not perfect. Like anybody, like he's fallible. He can get overexcited sometimes, but I feel like he just has like my forever trust. Like I know I just know he is that guy. So I don't know like every step of the journey. Like I don't know what the road is gonna be like, winding or split fork or whatever it is. But like it's really nice to have someone like him who like again, it's so much about people. Like the reason Andy is in charge of the company is because of their working relationship and the trust that they have. And then one of the earliest things that Andy told me when he was hiring me was like a lot of my job is bringing the right people in because like the circumstances, like the end goal is pretty much set, but like how we get there is going to be unpredictable, and like we need people who are A players. They're good at what they do. No, they're not just good. They're great at what they do, and they can navigate the obstacles. They're not going to be like on their ass when they're faced with a challenge. They're adaptable, but they can also be kind and they can also be caring. And so there's not one moment. Like like I said, like Gary has a really good way of being present, like a superpower way of being present. And that means that like when it's VeeFriends time, it's VeeFriends time. I've got one actually. And we should probably wrap because I gotta get to the office, but
Yeah, yeah.
not in a rush, but I've got one. I'm trying to think of like how to really illustrate this to you. I was in a one-on-one with him recently. It was like maybe a week or two ago, and we were talking about me. We're talking about like me, my role, how I'm doing. It was just like more of like a semi-annual, annual check-in type of meeting. And overall, I'm really good. Like I have good things to report, but like just like anybody, I struggle with stuff. I live in New York. It's expensive. Like I know people who are struggling right now. I've had friends who have died, and that's tough. But that's not something that there's really time to like slow down with sometimes. And so, I was just like telling him that like I had come out of some of that, been able to recover and feeling very focused now and excited about Chrome and everything. Just like anything, he's like, I appreciate that. Gave me a little like wisdom slash like I hear you type energy, and we had like 2 minutes left in our meeting. I think it was a 10-minute meeting, and I said to him, "Do you have 1 minute for something else?" And he looks at the clock. He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Burn Island Eruption 22," and I give him the rundown, and he's listening to me, and he's like, "Okay, is this the one with blank?" And like I kind of want to give you the alpha, but I really shouldn't yet. But like you guys will know in a couple weeks. Anyway, we're both like sitting at the desk. Like he's in his chair, I'm on the other side, and he's like, "Is it the one where we're doing that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, and he stands up and he's like, "Okay, now that I'm locked in," and he just like shifted gears. And I think of that moment because like there's just a time and a place for things.
Hmm.
Like there's strategy versus empathy, and like you can't be all things all at once. But like he only needed 60 seconds, less really, to like reframe from I'm receiving Jeremy as a human being who I care about at my company and I want to make sure is like as a human is good, so that he can do a great job for me in the company for my selfish reasons, but I need to be selfless right now and here, to okay, the entire community is going to get this news. This is an NFT centric activation. People are going to be burning book game tokens, like all of the factors that that entails.
Sure.
And you just turned on a dime, like different energy, 100%. And that gave me the permission to lock in deeper too and be like, yeah. And so that's why I was thinking we should do this instead of that. And he's like, great, let's do that. Approved by me, run it by Andy, and we're good to go. Done. Decision made. And I was like, okay, thanks. And I left,
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Like it just makes me just your journey is so amazing and so
Bro, how do you
symbolic.
think I feel? Do you realize, I feel like I'm living a fairy tale. Like,
Yeah,
I got to meet Patrick Harris last night. I'm like, I'm like a F level actor from LA who like moved to New York, had my like world turned upside down, and I just like happened to take the right risk and believe in myself the right amount to like be in a position where like now my cart is tied to one of the best horses the century is gonna see, like I feel so grateful for you. I feel so grateful for like I literally I don't mean to interrupt you, but like I just hope and I tweeted this the other day. I just hope people can feel the humanity behind the commerce. Like there's just a lot more to this than trading cards. There's a lot more to this than the new hat. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't be who I am without you. And like, I know that the same goes both ways for the VeeFriends community, but like, I'm
100%.
super happy to have this convo with you. And I don't think I said anything out of turn. I think we're all clear. Like, it's been very fun.
Amazing. Do you have I started a show within a show. Do you have 2 more minutes?
Sure.
V VeeFriends reading VeeFriends comics. And I had to pull from July 7th, 2024. I don't think there's any better one than The Secret Origin of the Heart Trooper.
Oh my gosh.
July 7th. So I know I'm putting you on the spot here. And, with all of your new adoptions, maybe someone's going to watch this in 5 years and be like, why is he having Jeremy read the Heart Trooper when he's a charismatic chameleon? But for now, this is what it will be. So without further ado, Jeremy knows reading The Secret Origin of the Heart Trooper.
The Secret Origin of Heart Trooper. My first memory was waking up in a secret lab. Unclear how I got there. My next memory was my mission. I was designed to be the perfect soldier of positivity, but I wasn't my maker's first attempt. There were others that failed. They had all succumbed to the forces of negativity in various ways. Sadly, the negative vibes outnumbered the good ones, and the world had become unbalanced. But even when all hope seemed lost, my maker didn't give up. And that spirit was instilled in me. It's what makes me different. I never give up. The world outside was overrun with negativity, but I was ready for the challenge. Wherever the forces of negativity reared their ugly heads, I brought all my love. Slowly but surely, hearts are beginning to change, are beginning to heal. And with that, an amazing discovery. There are no enemies. We're all in this together on this common ground. I am the Heart Trooper. My mission is to make positivity louder. I can't do it alone. Will you join us?
Let's go.
That was pretty
July,
lit.
fantastic, especially for being put on the spot. And that's a longer one, it's a text heavy one.
Yeah.
Jeremy, can't thank you enough. So much love to you
Thank you,
and
Rob.
so much appreciation for all of you do for everybody in all of the eras. So
Excited for the next chapter.
for the next chapter, have a great day and we'll see you soon.
Okay. See you soon, man. Peace out.